So right now, as you listen to this, there is a population roughly the size of New York City just wandering around completely lost.
Yeah, it's a massive number.
Right. I mean, we are talking about 10 million pets going missing every single year in the U.S. The craziest part about this staggering statistic is really how we try to solve it.
We rely on fences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We approach this massive informational crisis with like a physical leash or a locked gate or a fence. Anyway, welcome to the deep dive. If you are joining us as a fellow lifelong learner, well, you are in the perfect place.
Absolutely.
Today, we are looking at something that affects millions of households, especially considering the current calendar. I mean, we are currently in June 2026, which is simultaneously National Pet Microchipping Month and National Pet Preparedness Month.
Which is incredibly timely.
It really is. And to dig into this, we have a really fascinating stack of sources on the table. We're looking at 2 highly comprehensive pet health and preparedness articles alongside the actual branding and formulation science for a specialized health product called A+ Naturals.
Some really dense material there.
Yeah, but our mission today is to pull it all together and explore this ultimate 2-pronged strategy for keeping pets safe. So, external identification technology on one side and internal biological resilience on the other.
Right, covering all the bases.
Okay, let's unpack this because looking at that 10 million number, it becomes painfully obvious that physical barriers are just failing us.
They fail because, well, physical containment is really only the first line of defense, and honestly, it is highly vulnerable to human error or just environmental chaos.
Yeah, a gate gets left open, right?
Exactly. To understand why this dual approach we're talking about is so necessary, we have to look at the baseline reality of pet displacement. 1 in 3 pets will become lost at some point during their lifetime.
1 in 3. That is so high.
It is. But when we talk about pet preparedness, we tend to think of it purely as a physical problem, like, where's the dog? But losing a pet is fundamentally an informational problem. I mean, the animal is physically located somewhere, right? A shelter, a neighbor's garage, just wandering down a street. But the critical data connecting that animal to you, the owner, has been severed.
And that brings us to the first half of this safety net we're talking about, the technology of reunions. Because we hear the word microchip, and people just fundamentally misunderstand the tech.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, people hear chip, and they immediately think of their smartphone or like an AirTag.
Yeah.
They assume they can just open an app and track a little blinking dot moving down the street.
Which is definitely not how it works.
Not at all.
Right.
It creates this totally false sense of security where owners think their pet is actively broadcasting a signal.
Yeah, and relying on a microchip as a GPS tracker is incredibly dangerous. I mean, a microchip has no battery, it requires no charging, it possesses no cellular or satellite connection whatsoever.
Nothing at all.
Right. The technology at play here is RFID, so radio frequency identification.
I always think of it like a car's VIN number.
That is a great analogy.
Yeah, because your car's VIN doesn't broadcast its location to the police if the vehicle gets stolen. It is just a static, permanent identifier etched into the metal. It sits there, completely passive, doing nothing until an authority physically locates the car, looks at the dashboard, and runs that specific alphanumeric sequence through a centralized database.
The mechanics of the microchip follow that exact logic. We are talking about a tiny glass cylinder, roughly the size of a grain of rice.
It's just a grain of rice.
Yeah, and it's implanted subcutaneously right between the shoulder blades. Inside that glass is a microcircuit and a tuning capacitor.
Wow.
Hooked up to a tiny copper antenna coil, and it just sits completely dormant in the animal's tissue.
Doing absolutely nothing.
Right, doing nothing. It only activates for a fraction of a second when a veterinarian or a shelter worker passes a specialized RFID scanner over the skin.
How does that actually power it, though?
Well, the scanner emits a low-frequency electromagnetic field, and that field induces a tiny electrical current in the copper coil. It's just enough momentary power for the chip to transmit its unique ID number back to the scanner.
And then it just dies again.
Exactly. Then it goes dormant again.
The impact of that passive momentary transmission is just wild to me. I mean, our sources lay out some deeply contrasting statistics here.
Numbers are stark.
Yeah. Without a microchip, only about 15 to 20% of lost dogs are ever returned to their owners. And for cats, it is a dismal 2%.
2%.
Wait, 2%?
Yeah.
That is basically a functional zero.
Yeah.
I mean, cats notoriously drop collars, they hide in silence when they're terrified, and unfortunately, society often just assumes a roaming cat belongs to the neighborhood.
Yeah, people don't often try to catch a stray cat to scan it, but introduce an RFID microchip into the equation and the landscape completely
The
changes.
numbers jump, right?
Dramatically. Dogs are more than twice as likely to be returned, and microchipped cats are returned at a rate more than 20 times higher than unchipped cats.
20 times.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
To put a hard number on that efficacy, just one registry, Home Again, successfully reunited 163,000 pets with their families in 2024 alone.
Okay, but I have to play the skeptic here on behalf of anyone crunching these numbers as they listen.
Huh.
The procedure costs between $25 to $75. It is a one-time fee for a lifetime of passive identification,
Very affordable.
and it takes seconds to implant, basically much like a vaccine. So if the technology is that cheap and the return rates jump that dramatically, why do the sources show that only 58% of dogs and 38% of cats are currently chipped?
It's a great question.
And perhaps the darker question here,
Yeah.
why are there still so many microchipped pets just sitting in shelters right now?
Right. Well, the failure point is not the microchip, it is the human being.
Of course it is.
The sources actually reference a highly revealing study published in the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association, or JAVMA for short.
Okay, what did they find?
Well, the researchers didn't just look at shelter intake numbers. They traced the unreturned microchipped pets back through the system to figure out exactly where the chain broke.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is that the microchips were working flawlessly. The shelters were scanning the animals. The scanners were displaying the ID numbers
So the tech did its job.
perfectly. But when the shelter staff typed those numbers into the national registries, they hit a dead wall.
Let me guess. Because the owner never created the account in the first place.
That's a huge part of it.
Or they moved and just treated the chip like magic that would somehow automatically know their new zip code.
Exactly. The JAVMA study found that only about 6 out of 10 microchips are actually registered with up-to-date information.
Just 6 out of 10. That is frustrating.
It really is. I mean, consider the chaos of moving to a new city. You update your bank, your credit cards, your vehicle registration, your employer. The last thing on most people's minds is logging into a pet microchip database to update a phone number.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or a family adopts a pet from a rescue organization and they just falsely assume that shelter automatically transferred the registration into the new owner's name, which doesn't always happen.
Which totally explains why the sources emphasize using National Pet Microchipping Month, not just to get the implant, but to audit your data.
Yes, audit your data.
They specifically point out the AHA, that's the American Animal Hospital Association, their Universal Pet Microchip Lookup Tool, because an unregistered chip isn't a safety net. It is just a meaningless string of numbers sitting inside a dog's neck.
That's perfectly said. And if we connect this to the broader calendar, it clarifies why June is also National Pet Preparedness Month.
Right, because of what else happens in June.
Exactly. June marks the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season, and it obviously serves as the lead up to the 4th of July.
The big ones.
These are the two most concentrated triggers for pet displacement in the United States. Hurricanes mandate evacuations, which forces animals into chaotic, unfamiliar transits where they easily slip away.
So much confusion.
And fireworks trigger this deeply ingrained, basically uncontrollable flight response. It causes animals to panic, break through screen doors, or just slip their collars and run.
Okay, so let's say the RFID chip works flawlessly. The dog bolts during a July 4th fireworks display, gets picked up by animal control, they scan the shoulder blades, the AAHA lookup returns your current cell phone number, and you go pick up your dog the next morning.
The ideal scenario.
Right. Physical safety achieved. We tend to treat that reunion as the finish line. But the sources highlight a really profound biological reality here. The microchip brings the animal home, but the biological disaster is still happening inside the animal's body.
Yes. We have to shift our thinking from physical safety and informational networks to internal biological safety. The physiological toll of a disaster on an animal's body is systemic and it is severe.
Because we tend to anthropomorphize our pets, right?
Yeah.
We think, oh, he had a scary night, but he's sleeping on the couch now, so he's totally fine.
But we ignore the cellular reality.
The body keeps the score.
Always. When a pet experiences sudden displacement, like the explosive noise of fireworks or an unfamiliar shelter environment or separation from their pack, it triggers a massive neuroendocrine response.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Their bodies are just flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. Now, in a short-term acute scenario, cortisol is a necessary survival mechanism.
It keeps them alive.
Right, it spikes blood sugar for immediate energy and keeps the animal hyper alert. But when that stress becomes prolonged, say over several days in a noisy shelter or a crowded hurricane evacuation center, that cortisol becomes highly destructive.
Also.
It actively inhibits white blood cell production and function.
It's exactly like how humans always seem to catch terrible cold right after a grueling week of final exams or a major work deadline, isn't it? The adrenaline drops and the immune system just crashes.
That is the perfect analogy. The immune system essentially gets put on pause because the body is prioritizing running away from a perceived predator over fighting off microscopic bacteria.
That makes total biological sense. But the downstream cascade has to be brutal.
It really is. Chronic stress drastically increases susceptibility to respiratory illnesses. Think about kennel cough spreading through shelters.
Oh yeah, that's everywhere.
It also slows down collagen synthesis, meaning minor wounds or paw scrapes take significantly longer to heal. And the sources point out severe gastrointestinal disruption as well.
Like stress-induced stomach issues.
Worse, cortisol actually increases the permeability of the intestinal lining. It's a condition we call leaky gut.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It allows pathogens and undigested food particles to pass straight into the bloodstream, which triggers widespread systemic inflammation.
And the sources also detail how this stress exacerbates dormant issues. Feline urinary tract inflammation is a massive one mentioned here.
Yes, feline idiopathic cystitis.
Right. A cat goes through a stressful event, and their nervous system gets so overloaded that it actually causes the protective lining of their bladder to break down, resulting in severe pain and inflammation even when there is absolutely no bacterial infection present.
The stress itself is basically the biological weapon.
Wow.
And veterinary behaviorists also document cases of profound nervous system overload resulting in post-disaster trauma.
Like pet PTSD.
Essentially, yes. This manifests as sudden uncharacteristic aggression, inappropriate house soiling, or what they call Velcro behavior, where the animal suffers severe panic if the owner even just leaves the room. These are animals whose biological systems have been pushed past the point of cellular homeostasis.
It is so similar to experiencing severe systemic oxidative stress. It is like running a car engine at the red line for a week straight.
It's going to break.
Exactly. The vehicle might still be moving, but the internal components are degrading rapidly and the engine block is eventually going to crack. You can't just park the car and expect the engine to magically repair itself.
No, you can't.
This physiological crash is inevitable unless the immune system is actively fortified beforehand. Which brings us to the proactive solutions detailed in the sources.
Yes. This is where we look at the intervention strategies aimed at building resilience before the disaster actually occurs.
And looking at the visual branding for the A+ Pets company that was included in our materials, it actually tells you exactly what they're trying to do biologically.
The logo design is very clever.
It is. Their logo features this bold blue letter A, but the negative space inside forms the shape of a house or a tent, acting as a shelter for a white medical cross in the center. It instantly communicates shelter and medical aid working together.
A great visual representation.
And they are the developers behind the A+ Naturals Immunity Blend.
Right. And this specific blend was formulated to address the exact biological vulnerabilities we just outlined. The gut permeability, the immune suppression, and the systemic inflammation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The origin of this formula isn't your typical veterinary development story.
Not at all.
No. A+ Naturals was founded in 2014 by Helena van der Merwe. She's a pharmaceutical expert and serial entrepreneur, and her research background is just wild.
It's fascinating.
She actually co-authored a NASA Space Radiation Facility study focusing on the efficacy of nutraceuticals.
And the parallel there is brilliant when you look at the actual mechanisms. Space radiation causes profound oxidative damage at the cellular level.
Right, from cosmic rays.
Exactly. It shatters DNA strands and induces extreme cellular stress. Van der Merwe took that high-level understanding of how to use specific compounds to protect and stabilize cells under extreme orbital stress, and she applied those exact principles to the biological stress our pets face during earthly disasters.
That is such a cool origin story.
The result is this highly targeted 5.3-ounce plant-based supplement.
Taking research meant to protect astronauts from cosmic rays and using it to protect a golden retriever from the biological fallout of a hurricane.
It's incredible.
It really is. So looking at this ingredient list from the source, I am seeing a very specific probiotic here. Bacillus subtilis. Why utilize that particular strain when there are, dozens of common probiotics on the market?
Because Bacillus subtilis is spore forming.
Spore forming, what does that mean for the animal?
Well, most standard probiotics are destroyed by the highly acidic environment of a dog or cat's stomach before they ever even reach the gut. But a spore-forming bacteria encases itself in a hardened protein coat.
Like a little shield.
Exactly. It allows it to survive extreme heat and stomach acid, so it reaches the intestines fully intact where it then colonizes. And the formula pairs this with larch arabinogalactin, which is a highly fermentable prebiotic fiber.
So the prebiotic feeds the probiotic.
You've got it. The larch acts as the specific food source for the Bacillus subtilis, allowing it to rapidly restore the gut microbiome and essentially seal up those tight junctions in the intestinal wall that the cortisol tries to break open.
Okay, so the gut barrier is completely fortified against the stress response. I love that. I am also seeing astragalus alongside shiitake and reishi mushrooms. Now, I know mushrooms are heavily researched in human longevity protocols for their beta-glucan content. Is that what's happening here?
Yes, beta-glucans are phenomenal for biological resilience. They are complex sugars that essentially act as a training camp for the immune system.
A training camp? How so?
Well, they bind to specific receptors on the surface of macrophages. Those are the white blood cells that swallow cellular debris and pathogens.
Okay, so they activate them.
Basically, by binding to these receptors, beta-glucans prime the immune cells, keeping them in a state of high readiness without triggering unwanted inflammation.
Oh, that's a crucial distinction.
It is, and paired with the astragalus, which is an adaptogen that modulates the neuroendocrine stress response, the body is primed to handle an influx of shelter pathogens.
Looking further down the ingredient list, I see turmeric and ginger. Now, I know turmeric is a heavy hitter for joint inflammation in humans. Is that included here to combat the arthritis flare-ups we discussed earlier?
Precisely. Turmeric contains curcumin, which actively downregulates the enzymes responsible for systemic inflammation. It mitigates the wear and tear on joints that spikes when, say, an older animal is forced to sleep on a hard shelter floor for 3 days.
That makes perfect sense. And the ginger?
The ginger serves a dual purpose. It soothes the gastrointestinal tract, but crucially for evacuations, it acts on the central nervous system to reduce motion sickness.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, if you are stuck in gridlock traffic for 10 hours trying to escape a hurricane path, mitigating canine or feline nausea is absolutely vital for their stability.
Absolutely. Finally, there is L-lysine. Anyone who has fostered cats with upper respiratory issues is intimately familiar with L-lysine.
Oh, definitely. It is an essential amino acid, meaning the body cannot produce it on its own. It must be acquired through diet. L-lysine is a fundamental building block for collagen synthesis. So, during a high-stress event where cortisol is actively breaking down tissues, L-lysine ensures the body has the raw materials required to repair the mucosal linings in the respiratory tract and heal physical injuries.
So biologically, this formula acts as a comprehensive countermeasure to the cortisol cascade.
That's the goal.
But practically speaking, giving a supplement to an animal can be its own stress event.
Oh, it can be a nightmare.
Right. I mean, anyone who has tried to trick a dog by hiding a pill in cheese only to watch them swallow the cheese and perfectly spit out the pill knows this struggle. How does this formulation avoid becoming just another source of conflict?
Vandermeer's team sidestepped the pill problem entirely. The supplement is an easily dispersible powder featuring a vegan, bacon-like flavor profile.
Vegan bacon.
Yeah. It utilizes natural flavor compounds without relying on meat byproducts, artificial additives, or synthetic chemicals that could trigger food allergies in sensitive pets.
Okay, so it is universally palatable, but completely plant-based.
Exactly. And the dosing protocol is highly pragmatic. For cats, regardless of their size, it is just a flat 1/3 of a scoop mixed right into their daily food.
Nice and easy.
Very easy. For dogs, the dosage scales with their body weight. It seamlessly integrates into their normal feeding routine. And to back up the safety profile of these ingredients, the sources highlight that A+ Naturals secured official recognition from Health Canada in October 2025.
That's a big deal.
It is. That level of regulatory scrutiny confirms we are looking at scientifically validated, evidence-based nutrition, not just clever marketing.
So what does this all mean? If you are taking this in, evaluating your own setup, we are looking at a fundamental evolution in how we define responsible pet ownership and disaster preparedness.
It's a whole new paradigm.
It really is. A go bag with an extra leash and a 3-day supply of kibble is no longer the standard. True preparedness requires a holistic, dual-layered defense. You need the external safety net, an implanted RFID microchip actively registered and updated in a database like the AAHA lookup.
Yeah.
And you need the internal safety net, a biologically armored immune system built daily through advanced science-backed tools like the A+ Naturals Immunity Blend.
And the critical takeaway regarding both of these safety nets is the timeline of deployment.
Right, you can't wait.
Neither system can be initiated in the middle of a crisis. You cannot microchip a cat while fleeing a wildfire. And you cannot rebuild an animal's gut microbiome and cellular defenses the morning after a major stress event.
The damage is already done.
Exactly. The window for action is during periods of calm. Audit your pet's microchip registration today and begin fortifying their internal biology now so that when the environmental chaos hits, their cellular machinery is already equipped to endure it.
It really forces a perspective shift regarding the reality of the lives our pets lead.
It does.
We often look at them, the way a dog tracks a scent or the way a cat stalks a toy, and we see these wild, resilient descendants of apex predators. But the reality is, we have brought them entirely out of the wild and placed them into a distinctly human world.
A very unnatural world for them.
Very. We surround them with concrete, we expose them to unnatural disasters like climate-aggravated hurricanes, and we subject them to the explosive, concussive noise of 4th of July fireworks. Since we have placed these animals in modern environments that their biological evolution simply did not prepare them for, isn't it our ultimate responsibility to provide them with the technological and biological evolution like passive RFID networks and NASA-level nutraceuticals to help them actually survive it?
That's the real question.
Something to consider the next time you look down at the animal sleeping at your feet. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.